Well, good morning, APS, and welcome to the 2021 school year. I'm excited to have everybody back. I'm excited to be back in this work together. And while we know that this last year has been like nothing we've ever seen before and that this year will not be normal, I still hope that even over this last several months, you've had the chance to connect with your family, to take some time to step back and reflect, maybe find some new ways to connect with one another, to explore nature, to find a new streaming service, to maybe reconnect over a new board game. I know I had a few moments like that with my family, and I'm grateful for the time. But we're back at it. We're back together for this work that was so important to all of us. Now, we know that normally we'd be back on a stage somewhere. I'd be talking to you, connecting with you, maybe sharing a few laughs about the summer or the upcoming school year. And I will miss that connection. And we know that there's nothing normal about this upcoming school year. But I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the work that we have done together, that even in the lack of normalcy, we have found ways to be of service to this community. We have found a way and made ways to connect with this community. Back on March 12th, we declared an extended spring break. We immediately went to planning for how we can connect with our students, how we can make sure they still had access to their educational opportunities. We stood up a remote learning access program, and so many of you engaged with our students in trying to make sure they stayed connected, make sure that they stayed accelerating their learning. As part of that, we also did a tremendous job of tech distribution. Our IT teams, our school-based teams, our security teams came together, and over a short period of time, really 3 days, handed out over 18,000 tech devices to our kids to make sure that they could stay connected, both with all of you and all of our mental health supports. We've done the work of now going back and making sure we could refurbish those computers and planning on making sure we have a robust distribution for this school year to maintain that connection. And I'm so incredibly proud of the work of our nutrition services team, who came together quickly, incredibly quickly, and started to feed this community. As of today, we've served over 1.5 million meals over this last several months of this pandemic. We've continued to serve our families, our students, and anybody who walked up, quite frankly, to make sure that this community felt the support and the love of the Aurora Public Schools. Our abnormal response to what are abnormal times has been something that I've been incredibly proud of. And not just that, but we've also provided mental health supports to all of our community. We've made sure that through our tech devices, our students have stayed connected, both with our school-based staff, who are supported by our 2018 mill levy override, and also the Aurora Mental Health Center. I want to thank that mental health team for all their support, for checking in with students, for supporting them and their families through our traumatic times. And the efforts that we've done to make sure that we found a way through, that we found a path through different obstacles and challenges, those of what have stuck with me over the last several months. As many of you know, once in a while I write on my whiteboard. I try and write something that I want to focus on, that I think about, to put in context and perspective the work that we have. And as I thought about the way we responded to the pandemic over the last several months, I started to focus in on this quotation from the famous General Hannibal, when he was confronted by his other soldiers, by his generals telling him, there's no way through to our goal. We can't get there. He uttered what was now the famous phrase, "Aut viam inveniam aut faciam." I will find a way or make one. That philosophy of finding a way or making one has so exemplified who we are as a district over the last several months. And it's so informed who we're going to be into this school year. And I'm incredibly proud of that. It's informed our planning in some incredible ways. Over the last several months, we've been engaged in some rigorous planning work to prepare for this 2021 school year. As you know, we started the extended spring break on March 12th. We immediately got to work thinking about what 2021 would look like. On April 9th, the leadership team set in place the foundations, the essential expectations for 2021. On April 21st, we first reported that out to the board and talked about our 4 building blocks: academics, business operations, facilities, and social and behavioral structures throughout the district. And then throughout May, we stood up recovery teams to start that planning work. Those teams met all throughout May to think about what does it look like to meet those essential expectations in those 4 areas. I want to thank those representatives of different divisions, our school leaders, and also representatives of AEA who sat down throughout the month of April to think about and plan what a recovery and return would look like. June 2nd, as you know, we sent out a recovery plan survey to our stakeholders, our families, our staff, to ask about what are their needs, what are your needs as it relates to this coming school year, be it food or transportation. We also asked about different calendar options and different scheduling options through different ways of connecting with our families. And then on June 9th, we presented that recovery plan to the community. We released it, and then on June 16th, we formally reviewed each of those planning scenarios with our board. Throughout May, throughout August, throughout all this summer, we took those recovery plans and then took them to the divisions to begin the execution process, to think about what implementation looked like. And while guidance continually evolves from our state, from CDE, from CDPHE, and from Tri-County, we've continued to go back and rework those plans. So for example, on June 25th, we received new health guidance from the Metro Denver Partnership for Health. We shared that with the board to talk about what are the key elements of a recovery plan, what are the key elements of returning to school safely. And then on June 30th, two things happened. One, we asked the board to push back the start of school by 1 week so we can make sure we had extra time to make sure you were prepared. And then secondly, the board unanimously endorsed our planning process, including a full in-person return to school. July 10th, we worked with the Gary Community Foundation and COVID Check Colorado to create our opportunity for all of our staff to get free, rapid, asymptomatic testing for COVID-19 to make sure that we could provide a safe environment for everyone. And then on July 15th, the AEA voted to approve waivers for in-person cohort model implementation. I think we were one of the very few districts around the state that actually had a full vote of its membership around what an in-person model would look like. Then on July 21st, we asked the board to adopt some new temporary measures to deal with our reality around attendance and around graduation requirements, and we'll be implementing those this coming year. And then on July 24th, we did a comprehensive presentation to the board around what a day in the life would look like for in-person learning. But in consideration of current health data, the board directed that we go to a fully remote model, which is what we'll be starting in this school year, as you know. However, we still have an opportunity to do some in-person learning with special learning groups. And then August 4th, just a couple of days ago, we took to the board more detail around that remote learning platform, explaining how that would work and support all of our students and our staff. Now, I'm giving you just a few highlights, just an overview of some of the work that's happened over the last few months, because I want you to understand the amount of work that a really dedicated team has put into making sure that this can be an incredibly strong school year. We will have challenges, we will have difficulties, but through this work, we continue to find ways and make ways through. And throughout the entire time, that planning's been informed by good health guidance from Tri-County Health, the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, the Colorado Department of Education, all along the way, informing our work and helping us to go back and adjust those plans as necessary. We've also been engaged in regular planning meetings with our colleagues, daily planning meetings, often with a Metro Denver-wide planning team that included planning members from different districts and also different public health agencies. I'm engaged in a weekly meeting with all the other superintendents in the metro area to talk about plans to try to coordinate and learn from one another what best practices and strategies are. And then we're also engaged on a weekly basis with other superintendents and other districts around the country around some of that same work and what that looks like. And all of that planning work, all of that support has led to the ability to establish planning frameworks in 3 different scenarios. In person, that you see on the screen, is what is our normal school. But the other 3 scenarios we've had to build out. So that cohort in-person model, also a hybrid in-person model, we're engaged both in remote learning and also in person. And then thirdly, a fully remote model. We've developed plans in each of those areas because we know throughout the school year, there's definitely the possibility that we could be in any or all 3 of those throughout the year. We're starting in remote, but at some point in time, we'll transition to some in-person model. We may have to transition back to remote. We have to be flexible in that process, and I want you to know that our planning has taken that into account. But as you know, we're starting the year in our remote learning. So we want to talk about what the academic and behavioral supports will look like for that. We know that in the spring, we had an access program where it was about a crisis response to a pandemic. And while that was very supportive of our families, we know it did not provide the rigor that we need to move our students forward. And so we are transitioning now this fall, this beginning school year, into a much more rigorous academic program. You will have all kinds of materials and professional development for our instructional staff over the next couple of days to help support that transition. But the expectations are going to be higher. Expectations are higher for our students, for our families, and for all of us around how we engage in that program, how we engage in that work. We want to make sure that we are doing our work to accelerate learning for every APS student every day, no matter the modality. I want to show you a quick video that talks about some of the work that the Division of Equity and Learning has done to prepare for our remote learning platform.
Hello, I'm Andre Wright, the Chief Academic Officer for Aurora Public Schools. I'm honored to welcome you as we begin the 2020-2021 school year. Normally, we would be greeting you in our high school auditoriums as large, enthusiastic learning community groups. Of course, this year is different, and we're getting creative to adjust to our new normal. Over the last 5 months, we have encountered challenges unlike anything we've ever experienced before. Of course, remote learning is not ideal, and we look forward to returning to in-person learning in our classrooms sometime during this school year. Until then, we need to make remote learning rigorous, engaging, equitable, and impactful for all of our students. I ask for your enthusiasm, your flexibility, as we continue to learn and grow together.
Please know this, Aurora has a plan. We have many plans. It's just what we'll shift into when the circumstances determine that and demand it. And so we welcome you, we're ready for you, and most importantly, our kids are ready for you. The students in Aurora Public Schools are waiting for you. They're waiting for us to support them and their learning.
We know our students will be starting out virtually online, and we are prepared to work alongside you to ensure that every student can shape a successful future.
Let's have a good weekend.
In the spring, we responded to a public health emergency. That meant creating a remote learning platform from scratch and making sure students had access to remote learning resources. As we start this school year, we're setting higher expectations and targets for learning. Remote learning will be both synchronous and asynchronous on Monday through Thursday. On Fridays, most learning will be asynchronous so that our teachers and staff have additional time for data analysis, professional development, and planning. This fall, we will focus on high quality, grade level, and standards aligned learning. We will ensure that our students have access to high quality materials and resources, regardless of the circumstance. Another key area will be on building relationships so that our students have strong connections with our teachers and with other students. This connection, especially in our remote learning environment, will be critical in getting students engaged and excited to learn. Lastly, we need positive climate and culture in all of our remote learning classrooms. This means having the right social, emotional support in place and ensuring that teachers have a great training on how to foster a positive climate and culture.
Go around and hear how everyone's doing, okay? Does that sound good?
There will be opportunities to bring in small groups of students for specialized instruction during the school year. We're currently working to determine which groups of students will receive in-person instruction and when. We also have strong plans in place to support English language learners, students with special needs, and gifted and talented students. For more information on those plans, please talk with your school leaders. Our Board of Education recently approved a revised calendar and attendance policy for this school year. Please review the calendar and attendance policy on our Back to School website. This pandemic has challenged all of us to do our jobs in different ways and in different spaces, but it doesn't change the core of what we do, which is to educate and inspire students every day. Please know we have lots of incredible professional development opportunities for you We also have the most dedicated team of coaches, principals, and district staff who are here to support and cheer you on. You're not on a remote learning island. You have an entire APS team to problem solve with you and encourage you every day. Whether you're planning for a synchronous or asynchronous learning opportunity, reach out to others. There are so many great ideas and digital tools that we have available for you. Be sure to take advantage of them and share ideas. Together, we are one Aurora, and we're going to make this an unforgettable school year.
And so with that in mind and that understanding, I want to turn to what must be the core of our work. Again, our strategic plan, because this year won't just be about making sure we're feeling comfortable. We also know that we have to stay anchored in making sure that we are accelerating the learning for our students. And the way we do that in the Aurora Public Schools is making sure that we focus on 3 key goals. Make sure that every student has a plan for their future, that they have a set of skills to implement that plan, and that they have the credentials that open key doors. We're a district that stays focused, and I've asked everybody in the district to make sure that they understand that we all have one job.
My job is to accelerate the learning.
To accelerate the learning
Of every APS student every day.
I do my job by ensuring that we are expanding the village of supports.
by leading a team of professionals
By hiring the right people, providing the right resources, and creating the right systems.
to help every student shape a successful future.
My community needs me to do my job.
My community needs me to do my job.
My community needs me to do my job, and our community needs you to do your job. I want to thank each of you for the work you've already done to start preparing for this school year. We know we will transition to in-person learning at some point during this year. When that time comes, please know we have many health guidelines and precautions in place. We also have plans to make that transition as seamless as possible for our teachers, students, and families. I want to thank you for your dedication to serving our students and for the many hours you will spend fulfilling your responsibilities to our community. In Aurora Public Schools, we succeed together as a team, and we need each other more this year than ever before. On behalf of the Division of Equity and Learning, thank you. We look forward to serving you, our students, and the APS community as we take on this new chapter in remote learning together.
I want to thank our Division of Equity and Learning for putting together that video, and also for putting out the resources that we need to have a strong remote learning platform to make sure we can engage in that work in a rigorous way. What you're hearing over and over again from me and from others is that there's been an incredible amount of planning done over this break. And I recognize that all the planning in the world still has to confront the reality of what we're dealing with. We are seeing moments of social justice taking center stage as we recognize the killings of unarmed Black people across this country and the social uprising related to that. We're of course dealing with all of the issues of the global pandemic. All of those issues, all of those things are bringing up a series of emotions and anxiety in all of us, myself included. And we have to think about, how do we deal with that? How do we handle, how do we address that feeling, that sense of anxiety in all of us? This disease is particular, this virus is particularly insidious because it robs us of the ways of connecting and being with one another that we are so used to and that we are so welcome in so many ways. In particular, in education, I think it's problematic and it's challenging because many of us are in this work because school for us was a safe place. It was a place where we felt connected, felt supported every day. So when we are confronting those sense of fear and loss and uncertainty, we know that if we are to accelerate the learning for every APS student, we have to find a path through. We have to find a way or make a way through that. And how do we do that? Well, many of you who are returning to the district know that over the summer, I often try and find some perspective by finding good books and reading and really trying to find a way to connect our work to broader pictures. And this summer was no different. I had the opportunity to take a look at a book called A Mighty Long Way, written by Carlotta Walls Lanier. Miss Lanier, who lives in Denver now, was a member of the Little Rock Nine. There's a picture of her when she was a 13-year-old freshman, her entry to the school being protected by the federal government and the 101st Infantry. And in thinking about her experience and understanding the daily indignities that she went through, the fear and the sense of uncertainty that she had to deal with and her colleagues on a daily basis, it gave me a little bit of a sense of perspective into this school year. While there is certainly absolutely no silver lining as it relates to COVID-19, what it does is it reminds us, and this book reminded me, that for some of our students, school has never been a place where they felt safe or connected. And what this does is it gives us a window into connecting with students in a way that we never have before, with some cohort of students who have always felt that sense of fear in our schools or that sense of loss of support. And that gives us a new way to engage with our students, a new way to push through, and gives us a different perspective and as we think about this school year. So as I think about how we can find a way or make a way through that sense of fear, loss, and uncertainty, I reflected upon some of the things that Ms. Lanier talked about in her book. And she talked about how even as a 13-year-old freshman, one of the ways that she did that was by focusing on her principles, the principles that her family had taught her, the principles of the movement that she was part of. That focus helped her overcome that sense of fear. Secondly, she talked about always looking forward, always understanding where they were trying to go, what they were trying to get done by that movement. And then third, making sure that she could find allies and that she could be an ally to everyone around her. For the last few minutes that I have here, I want to share how I approach and think about those three things as it relates to the Aurora Public Schools. First of all, thinking about principles. If we were going to find a way or make a way through that sense of fear, we have to focus on our core principles. And one of the most central principles for us is a focus on equity. This is the excellence and equity framework that we have been focused on for the last 6 years or so, through the work of Unbound Ed and Yemi Stembridge and Pedro Noguera, trying to think about how we can develop structures and systems within each of these spheres to connect and support with our students. We are not going to let go of that focus on equity. We're going to continue to build on that excellence through equity framework. But in this moment of social justice, in this moment of confronting some of the sins of our past, we were going to make sure that we're more explicit about our work. We're also going to make sure that we look at and reevaluate our practices and our outcomes. And we've connected with an organization called Promise 54 to help us do that work. And many of you have volunteered to be part of that process and have engaged in surveys around that process. We are not going to let go of that core principle. And we're also going to recognize that we've had success in our work. We've been very proud of the work that we've done to close the graduation gap, to try and close achievement gaps, to uplift everyone across the system. And we will not let go of that next rung of success. This year won't be about just holding on to where we're at. It's going to be about pushing through and getting to that next rung. That core principle is going to be how we're going to find a way or make a way past some of that sense of fear. And when we think about that sense of loss as well, whenever there's a sense of loss, it's very easy to stay anchored in that moment, to stay rooted in that moment, to think about the traditions that we've lost, perhaps the people that we've lost, or the sense of security that we've lost. The way we can find a way and make a way through that is by always looking forward. And in APS, I suggest there's two ways we can do that. One, we can continue to ask ourselves the question, what if this is the room? What if this is the opportunity for the students in front of us to break through whatever barriers in their life? How do we prepare ourselves? How do we show up in the best way to make sure that if this is the room where they have that opportunity, that we can provide that for them? And then secondly, we're not only going to be asking ourselves that question, but we're going to keep planning for our future. And for us, that looks like Blueprint APS, our process to make sure we think about how to make sure we have the right resources aligned with our students, where they live, and their demographics. We have a responsibility to keep pushing forward with that work to make sure that we connect with this community and know how best to serve this community going forward. And then finally, I want to talk about what it means to be an ally. And that might mean being an ally to marginalized students, or it might mean being an ally to one another. But when I talk about being an ally, I talk about two things in particular. One, a willingness to see and acknowledge the legitimacy of another person's struggle. And two, a willingness to take on their struggle as their own. We're all going to have struggles this year. We're all going to face challenges. And so what we want to do is be allies for one another and seek out the allies that we need. And we know that our students will need allies this year. Our students are at risk of being a generation at risk of losing out on tremendous academic progress. When we think about the racial and socioeconomic gaps that will be exacerbated by remote learning, but also by the challenges of even in-person learning in a pandemic, our kids are at tremendous risk this year. We have to be allies for our students and take on their struggle as our own as we think about how we can show up in their spaces, how we can show up in their lives. I also know that we have to be allies for our entire team. I recognize that even though we've been doing this planning work, we are now about to ask our instructional staff to be on the front line with our students, to be on the front line with our students and their families, sometimes in their living room remotely, sometimes in person with them, to address their traumas and their needs and their academic interests. We're trying to be allies for all of you, doing things like COVID Check Colorado, making sure that each of you have access to that rapid asymptomatic testing. Trying to make sure that our plans and structures protect precious planning time. Working collaboratively with AEA, making sure that they were part of the recovery team planning and also engaging them in a vote for that in-person model. And also making sure that you will have tight and flexible expectations so you know what's in your realm of control and also have a sense of what things as the district making sure are provided. And then also critically making sure that not just our students, but also all of our staff has access to critical mental health supports. We extended some of our telemedicine over the summer, and also the EAP program is available to all of you. Please reach out. Please seek out those allies in your times of need or your times of just needing to connect with someone in a different way. And then finally, let me reinforce what I know is already true, that you will be allies for one another. And when I think about what that means and what that looks like, I reflect back on Miss Lanier's book, on what it was the importance of the allies that she had as she walked through what were the difficult halls of Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. In one passage, she talks about this. I remember Jenny as befriending me, though I can't think of a special thing she said or did that was particularly special. But I guess that was the point. I saw nothing in her eyes and heard nothing in her tone that suggested she thought I was special or different. She just treated me with the same consideration and dignity she showed everybody else. That's all I ever really wanted. That's all every one of us wanted. And each time I encountered a rare soul who seemed to recognize that, I considered it a real blessing. The power of finding allies in the middle of your struggle, the power of being an ally, I can't state it any better. It can be a real blessing for all of us. And that is something that we're all going to need. We know there's a path forward. We know there's a way through. We have to find a way or make that path ourselves. We will confront challenges this year like we've never seen before. We will have to change our plans and rewrite our expectations. We know that's going to happen. But I want you to know you've had a strong team working hard over the last several months to prepare that path forward. And we know that you individually and collectively can come together and find a way or make a way. I want you to know that you've got extensive resources available to you, both on our Back to School website and our COVID-19 and coronavirus website. Please go through there, familiarize yourself with the things in there. There's a lot there, a lot of dense material, but please find the time, take the time to go through so that you feel ready, so that you feel prepared and comfortable with the work ahead of us. And also as you engage in the professional development for our instructional staff over the next couple of days, please make sure that you're engaging and you're connecting, you're asking questions to help address those areas where you feel uncertain or you feel that sense of discomfort. We want you to be ready. We know you can be ready through the work that we collectively have put together. And finally, as always, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the tremendous support that you've been. I want to thank you for your grace and flexibility as we go into this school year. And I want to thank you for being of service to the Aurora Public Schools. We know that this community needs us to do our job. I look forward to seeing each of you soon. I look forward to finding a way to connect with so many of you in the coming days. Welcome back to the 2021 school year.